Alright, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Akeen. Welcome to today's vlog. Here to give you a preview of week 10 of the 2015 college football season. It's time for me to talk about all the key matches and my predictions. And I must say we have 3 games who definitely are great nominees for games of the week. And there's even a couple survival matchups between some of the top teams in each of their respective conference in college football. First up, Thursday night is going to be between number 6 Baylor at Kansas State. The game is going to be played at Manhattan, and Blair is going to have to play without their star quarterback, Seth Russell, who is out for the remainder of the season due to a neck injury. But he has a good backup behind him in Jarrett Stidham, who had 6 touchdown passes to 0 interceptions thus far this season. I think the Bears are going to be just fine and pull off a road victory over Kansas State. Next up, Penn State is going to be playing at Northwestern. Now, the Wildcats of Northwestern does have 2 conference losses, and they actually came up with a close escape over Nebraska last week, 30-28, and they're playing against a tough 7-2 Penn State team led by quarterback Christian Hackenberg, who's definitely been doing well offensively for the past couple of games, despite the close victory over Maryland. But they did have a great win last week. But I think the Penn State Nittany Lions is going to pull off the upset against Northwestern. Next up in the ACC conference between Duke and North Carolina, this is a Coastal Division showdown. Now, Duke last week definitely had a controversial loss last week to the U. I think that the ACC front office should definitely overturn that loss, because that player was down in that lateral play in which Miami escaped with a road victory. But this game is going to be played at North Carolina, and North Carolina is 7-1 with their lone defeat in their first matchup against South Carolina. But they are undefeated in conference play, and quarterback Marquise Williams has been doing a good job leading that offense, and they definitely have a good running back in Elijah Hood. They have a great, well-balanced offensive attack, and I think they're going to explode in this matchup against Duke at home. Next up, an upset alert between Pitt hosting number 5 Notre Dame. Now, the Fighting Irish definitely had a great matchup last week in the game of the week between them and Temple, in which they did pull off the 24-20 victory. I'm going to have to go with the Fighting Irish in this one, staying alive to make it to the college football playoff. They are ranked 5th overall, like I said. Next up, number 11 Stanford at Colorado. Now, normally I would not call out this matchup, but this is a significant game, because if Stanford wins, I believe that they will pull off the outright victory the North Division to make it to the Pac-12 championship if they pull off this win, and I think they will. This is definitely going to be a great matchup. I think their defense is going to do great enough, especially now they did have a close win last week against Washington State, a good offensive team led by quarterback Luke Falk. But I think this team is definitely a great defensive team, and they definitely will hold off Colorado in this matchup. I'm going to have to go with the Cardinals over the Buffalo. Next up, one of my nominees for game of the week, as number 16 Florida State is going to be traveling to Clemson to face the new number 1 Clemson Tigers. Yes, they came in last week ranked number 3, but then they bumped up 2 slots to number 1 with a great victory over in a close matchup against NC State. That offense led by Deshaun Watson is doing a great job, and they have a good underrated running back in Wayne Gallman. I think this is going to be a win for Clemson in this one, because Florida, they do have some great talent, but McGuire is actually going to be starting this week at quarterback. He had a great week last week against Syracuse, and James and Jock Smith is a good replacement running back for Dalvin Cook. Cook should return this week, but if not, Jock Smith will get the touches this week at running back, and he is a great replacement. But the defense for Florida State has been a little bit exposed, especially in the matchup against Wake Forest, and I think that offense is going to be way too much for Florida State. This is a good Clemson team who is very hungry and trying to remain number 1 overall. And if they do win that matchup against the Noles and escape the upset, this team definitely has the verge of just remaining undefeated for the remainder of the year and making it to the playoff. I think they will. I think usually I was kind of predicting that Clemson would try to find a way to mess things up for their season, but I think this year they will remain undefeated headed into the playoff. Next up, number 8 TCU is going to be traveling to Oklahoma State to face number 14, the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Now, this is another game for a nominee for game of the week because of the Big 12, and both these two teams are undefeated. Now, for OK State, they escaped a lot of games this past season, and I think this is going to be an end of the road for this matchup. I'm gonna have to go with TCU in this one. Trevon Boykin and Josh Doctson, that's a good quarterback wide receiver combo in this matchup, and they definitely blend well. They have great chemistry, and they do have a good running back in Aaron Green. Now, for comparison compared to Oklahoma State, they do have a good team, but like I said, their offense is still a little shaky. Now, Rudolph is a good quarterback, but they still need to get a ground game going compared to TCU. They definitely have a better dual threat quarterback with Trevon Boykin, and they do have Aaron Green behind him at running back. I'm going to have to go with the Horned Frogs over the Cowboys in that matchup. Next up, number 25, Houston's hosting Cincinnati in a good American Athletic showdown. This is to be a good game, and this game I'm actually calling out as my upset game of the week. Now, Cincinnati did have a couple losses this season. That they came up close against Memphis, as well as I think they had a great game against Miami, a close game to BYU until the Cougars pretty much pulled it off in the second half. But I think the Bearcats are going to do good enough to pull off the upset in this one, and I think they're going to do a decent job enough to keep containment of quarterback Greg Ward and try to keep containment and stopping the run. And if they really stop the run and force Ward to throw the football and put more pressure in him, I think they would definitely give the Cougars their first loss in the season, and I think they will. I'm going to have to go with Cincinnati over Houston in that matchup as my upset game of the week. Next up, another upset alert between 6-1 Navy against undefeated Memphis. Navy has a good ground attack led by quarterback Keenan Reynolds, but this is obviously the only weapon offensively. Not I'm talking about weapon odds of a particular player, but they depend on running the football, and Memphis's defense is definitely going to have to play disciplined football. This could be an upset alert, but I'm going to have to go with Paxton Lix and company. I think they're going to do a great job throwing the football because the defense for midshipmen is a little bit in question, but they do have great offense led by quarterback Keenan Reynolds, who's actually has one of the top rushing quarterbacks of all time in college football. Next up, a Pac-12 showdown between Cal at Eugene to face the Oregon Ducks. Both of these two teams are 5-3. This should be a great game for you guys to watch, so I had to call it out as one of my key matches. I'm going to have to go with Oregon in this one. They had a great game against Arizona State. They pulled off the win in Tempe, and Cal is a great team. This is going to be a good offensive showdown between these two teams, but I'm going to have to go with Oregon in this one. Cal's kind of falling apart a little bit offensively, but they still have a great quarterback in Jared Goff. Next up, still in the Pac-12 conference between USC and Arizona. Now, USC is definitely looking to survive in the Pac-12 South Division. They did pull off an upset against Utah, giving the Utes their first loss. Now, the Trojans still need to win out for the remainder of the season, and they're hoping that Utah loses another game in order for the Trojans to pull off the tiebreaker and make it to the Pac-12 championship. I think the Trojans will stay alive in hopes that Utah will lose in their matchup. And speaking of Utah, they're going to be playing at Washington. I'm still going to go with the Utes in that matchup and USC over Arizona. Lastly, my game of the week, as number 2 LSU is going to be traveling to Tuscaloosa to face number 4 Alabama. Now, both teams have great running backs with Leonard Fournette for LSU and Derrick Henry for Alabama. So the question, the X factor in this one is the quarterbacks between Jake Coker of Alabama and Brandon Harris of LSU. Now, for Alabama, they really need to focus on stopping Leonard Fournette, slowing him down, and they do have a physical, explosive defense for that Tide defense. And like I said, it's going to be between both quarterbacks, and I think that because Alabama has a better passing attack, in my opinion, than LSU, I'm going to have to go with Alabama getting the edge in this one. They have the home field advantage, and they're looking to stay alive to make it to the college football playoff. Now, for LSU, even if they lose this game, they can still make it to the college football playoff as a top 4 team. Now, LSU, on a personal note, I really hope LSU wins this game, but seriously, as an analyst, I have to keep it real with everybody. I think that Alabama has even a better defense overall than LSU, and LSU is facing their toughest opponent yet this season. This should be a great game for you guys, but I think Alabama's going to do good enough to slow down the run and put pressure on Brandon Harris. I'm going to have to go with the Tide over the Tigers in this matchup. This should be a great game for you guys to watch. Now, the next time to catch you guys will be on Sunday morning, which I will give you a recap of this week. Thank you for watching today's vlog. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.